Okay, can we declare the meeting open, please? I declare the meeting of the City Council open. Can I just say before we start in the meeting that it's not going to be broadcast live, but it will be available later on, because it is being recorded, but it's not going out live. This meeting is being conducted remotely in accordance with the Local Government and Elections Wales Act 2021 and the remote meeting protocol agreed by Cabinet, operating alongside the Council's standing orders to ensure that we continue to take democratic decisions in an open and transparent manner. Can I remind members that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public? Please can you switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking to avoid any unnecessary background noise and help with the audio and visual quality of the broadcast. The Council's standing orders and code of conduct will apply at all times. During this virtual meeting, in the same way as ordinary meetings, and members should conduct themselves accordingly. Can I also remind members to ensure that their chat function is switched on and to use the facility to indicate to me that when they wish to speak on a particular item, please do not speak until I invite you to do so. And remember to unmute your microphone and switch your camera on. When I invite members to cast their vote on a particular item, they will do so electronically using the voting facility in the chat function. The votes will be automatically counted and recorded on the system, but individual votes are not identified on screen and the chat room. Poll is not available but is not available for public viewing. However, I will announce the number of votes cast for and against and any abstentions before I declare the result. As well as being broadcast, a recorded version of this remote meeting will be uploaded onto the Council website for public viewing as soon as possible after the meeting. Welsh translation of the proceedings can be provided upon request, and images and sound recording may also be used for training purposes within the Council. I move to item 1 now. I have received apologies of absence from the following councillors: the Mayor, Councillor Kellaway, Councillor Fairweather and Councillor Cleverly. Are there any other apologies? Okay. Councillor Corton?
If Councillor Bev Perkins was going to try and join online.
Okay. Can we record those? Right. Move on to item 2 of item 1. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest at this stage? No. I move on to item 1 of number 3 of item 1. The only announcement I have is nice to see Councillor back after his operation, so congratulations and make speedy recovery. Right, I got item 2 is the minutes. The minutes of from February 28th to 2003 are before us. Are there any points of accuracy? Councillor? Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Providing Officer. I asked a question at the last council meeting to the chair of the Democratic Services Committee. I had a response in writing because we cut the meeting short, but that response isn't in the minutes of the meeting. I've spoken to the Democratic Services, made them aware, and they are going to amend them.
Thank you very much for that. Any other points of accuracy that need to be recorded? I'd like to move the minutes then as a true record. Is there a seconder? Councillor Pat Truitt. Would all councillors please cast their votes? All those in favour? It's unanimous. Is there any against? The approval of the minutes is duly carried. Item 3 is appointments. Councillor Carr to introduce this item.
Presiding member, the appointments are in front of you all on page 32. It's all there in writing. I would like to move all the appointments.
By Councillor Oakley to second the report.
I second the appointments.
Thank you. Would all councillors please cast their votes? All those in favour? That's carried. There's no against, is there? No. The council appointments are duly carried. I'm pleased to welcome, and I was going to say Chief Inspector Jason White, but it's Superintendent now, so congratulations, well deserved. So I'll take it up, so it's up to you now to make a statement. Okay.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? So just a bit of myself. My name is Jason White. I'm no stranger to Newport. I've spent 25 years in the job, and the first 18 years was actually as a PC sergeant, working in pretty much every area within the Newport area. I've come back after 7 years, like the prodigal son, back to Newport. There have been some changes in terms of personnel, but I think the mantra is still the same. And it's a really, really good place to work, and I'm thoroughly enjoying myself. So, yeah, this is my second day as the new superintendent for the East LPA, which includes Monmouthshire and Newport. And I think it'd be remiss of me not to talk about performance as a bit of just an overview of the last 12 months. Generally speaking, when you look at a lot of the volume crime areas within the Newport area particularly, then we've seen over the last financial year particularly reductions in violent crime, vehicle crime, residential burglaries, and robberies have remained static pretty much throughout the last, certainly the last financial year. Since I started as a chief inspector in August last year, I wanted to change the approach that we have towards dealing with crime. I think historically, and this is across the police service generally, we're very good at reacting to crime, but not being necessarily on the front foot. And I know there's some criticisms of that. So I would say over the last 2 months, 2.5 months, on a daily basis at our 8:30 meetings, we look at named offenders and repeat offenders, and the real fewer demand drivers that is really hurting us within our communities. An example would be a prolific shoplifter on the city centre, responsible for 10 crimes. They're being investigated or were investigated by anything up to 8 different officers in the case. So there's a lot of inefficiencies in that system. What we now have adopted is that out of those 10 crimes, for instance, they're all pulled together in one package, and we have one OIC, and immediately that person is then arrested and brought into custody to make them, or to ensure that they don't cause any more demands within our communities. I have to say it's been really gratefully received. Everybody within certainly Newport have really bought into the system, and I mean CID as well in relation to that as well, in a way that we review our residential burglaries and our serious violence crime, and looking at our named offenders. So it's very much focused on offender management and getting those demand drivers and those individuals in custody at the earliest opportunity. I'm still learning my way around the neighbourhood policing side of the house, but I know there's some fantastic work that's going on throughout the Newport area. I know Newport West, covers Pill and Bettis, are doing some fantastic work in terms of closure of houses that's causing antisocial behaviour for residents in the area. Maindy has already started now Op Harley, which is the summer campaign for dealing with off-road bikes, and that's rolled out throughout the Newport area. And whilst I've been back, we've reinvigorated our city safe approach to dealing with the nighttime economy and public disorder and general licensing issues on a Friday and Saturday night. And I've sort of tweaked the shifts so that there is better and more sustained footprint on the city centre through till 7 o'clock in the morning, whereas previously, before I landed, that was only limited to around 3 or 4 o'clock. So it's having a far more sustained footprint and more visibility on the city centre. So I'll just pause for now, and if there's any sort of questions in relation to performance, I'll take.
Before I bring the leader in, can everyone make sure that their microphone is off, because we're getting a lot of background noise here at the moment. Okay. Right, leader.
Thank you, presiding member, and welcome back. I'm delighted to welcome you back to Newport. I might congratulate you on your Congratulations on that. I just one point really, and we know that the organisation, the forces, there are changes that take place at every level, and I think we're all well aware of that. Something that was introduced relatively recently that's been very helpful to elected members. There was a briefing note that was sent out to us that not only highlighted who was where, but also what the major issues were across the city. And really there was cross-chamber support for that. It was very, very useful introduction from Chief Inspector Davis. So have you any intentions to continue with that? Because we really did find that very useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of that, there are changes. But there is some consistency as well. So Carl Williams, who I think came at the last meeting, is staying as the Chief Superintendent. I'm replacing Vicky Townsend, as you all know. John is staying where he is in Newport, but sliding across to my previous role. And then we've got a very experienced lady, Amanda Thomas, who's coming in to deal with the neighbourhood side of the house. So by and large, we fared fairly well in terms of the infrastructural changes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, President Member. Good evening, Superintendent. Just a few things I've got a query, please. I just want to could you pass on those thanks to Inspector Hannah Welty and the team. There was a robbery in Bettis as well not so long ago in the newsagents. I think they apprehended a gentleman, I think, and he's remanded in custody. So I would say thank you to them for a quick response to that as well. Also, we've got problems at the moment now. Now we know one of the schools, Millbrook School in Bettis, has been closed now. We've got a few youths have actually gone there and actually broken into the school. They've got through over the fence, everything else, and broke into the school and done a bit of damage to the school. Luckily, at the one time, the head teacher was actually at the school at the time when they found out the break-in. There was 3 youths then with their hoods up and face masks over their face. The head sort of like shouted at them and they sort of scabbard off, but the one young youth, a young girl, dropped a purse, everything else, and a bunch of keys, and they found out who the young girl was. And it was brought to the police about that as well. They've also broken into as well over the Flying Start as well, and I for Hale as well. Would it be any possible there be some officers maybe on foot again, with the same problem with Monmouth School we had on the last meeting? Councillor White brought that up as well, saying about there was youths breaking the windows there as well. It'd be nice, even I know now the residents now are starting to know now the school now is vacant now, and there's still things within the school that could be stolen more like anything else. And I've also actually sent the cabinet member as well an email regarding this as well. So if we could get a bit of some officers maybe to have a little walk around every so often if possible. Thanks ever so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just go back to the first point. I think I picked up around a robbery. Just part and parcel of that, and the sort of ethos that we're sort of introducing around our proactiveness. The detective inspector and certainly the DCI in Newport are really hot on identifying quickly offenders, and an example of which over the last 4 to 6 weeks, just in Newport alone, so the Newport West area, Newport Central, I think we've identified and arrested 12 individuals. By and large, they are youths who are committing these offences, and the demographics of the victims are actually youths as well. So there's a bit of work around prevention, intervention as well. But just going back to your point, you said that was the person was arrested. We have got a very good return rate in terms of dealing with our offenders for robberies and violent crime. Just going back to the couple of burglaries around Milburn and Flying Start. In addition to that, or in addition to those patrols, and I've got no issue with having some dedicated patrols in that. What we also do, and just for some reassurance for everybody in the chamber, is that we've invested heavily in a system called We Don't Buy Crime, which is very, very heavily balanced towards crime prevention. So officers will come out and do some crime prevention advice. The likelihood of offences taking place again. just to offer you and everybody else some reassurance on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Councillor Howells?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Two things really. First is a sort of thank you in relation to vehicle congregation and car racing on the SDR. Tesco's was a major issue, as you'll know. Tesco's Superstore under there. Officers have worked really hard with Tesco's and us as councillors to sort of nip that in the bud. What's happened over the last 6 months is they've now started to congregate at the velodrome, and they're using that as a racing track around the velodrome in the evening. So it's quite a good circle for donuts, I'm assured, by sort of people living close by. And I wonder whether some attention could be drawn to dealing with that and trying to put a similar response in to sort of nipping that in the bud there as well, if possible. I'm happy to support with conversations when Newport Live as needed to see if they can perhaps target harden it in the evenings to stop vehicles getting down there, those sorts of things.
So just on that, I spoke as recently as yesterday to the inspector out there, Rowley Giles, and we talked around the car meets in particular. I am pleased to say that calls have gone down in that particular area, but I know that Rowley is sitting down with a previous, he's retired now, but he used to be a chief inspector, Richie Blakemore, as somebody may know. But he's the force lead at the moment for problem-solving policing, problem-orientated policing. I know that Rowley is looking at that particular issue around car meets, not just in that area, but across the Newport area, around what we can put in place and what partners we can speak to and deal with and work with to try and reduce the impact on those local communities.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mogford?
Thank you, Superintendent. It's good to hear that Operation Harley is going to start up again. On a slightly similar note, as we drive around the city, most of us will see e-scooters. They seem to be traveling around with impunity. Where does it fit on your priority list?
So really good point. Again, I spoke to Inspector Giles yesterday. We seized we seized an e-scooter last week in the St. Julian's ward area of Newport, where our individual was arrested for possession with intent to supply. And we are tending to see not just a local picture, but as part and parcel of a national picture, that people tend to be using this mode of transport to undertake those offences. We have got tactics. I know that John Davis, when he spoke many months ago, we're waiting for some sign off of some tactics. It is classed, e-scooters are classed as motor vehicles, and we can use tactics to physically stop those vehicles. I think we need to look at proportionality of the tactic, though. If it's absolutely life and death, and clearly we will use specialist tactics to do that. But for me, it's around building up that intelligence picture and using my neighbourhood teams to really use enforcement by building up intelligence and seizing those vehicles. And we got several powers which we can do that. One of which is under Section 59, which is using an e-scooter in an antisocial manner. And because it's classed as a vehicle in terms of licence and insurance, we can also use it. We can also use Section 165 under the Road Traffic Act to actually seize that vehicle as well. So that's certainly the directive that the inspectors, the geographical inspectors in our ward areas are looking to utilise through their teams.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. Inspector, if you could take back, because I am very quick to give you a kick in when I feel you deserve one, but I'm also just as quick to apologise when information has been misconstrued or the wrong information has been given. I've emailed Carl separately, but the information that I was given was incorrect information, and I just want to set it straight in this live meeting because that's where I brought it up. So it's apology from me to him because the information I was given was incorrect, which is why they couldn't find where they were going.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marshall?
Yes, thank you, presiding member. I'd like to just raise about fantastic hub that we've now opened up yesterday in relation to technology. Some of the technologies like assistant, basically artificial intelligence, helping those in our communities who are less mobile. Now, some of that has actually seen a reduction of police resources being utilised because of the fact of like dementia, people with dementia going out and having the various devices on them to know where they are, for example, in Operation Herbert, and other devices that allow them just to be able to make sure that the welfare checks that these people are safe, who are normally vulnerable people. So would he be willing, either him or his team, to come along to the hub in order to see the technology, but also to see how we can work together to understand how we can help our communities together, and just raise the awareness of that hub to yourselves, but also for the knowledge of your officers about what technology is out there working together to, you know, reduce the resources applied to them, but making sure that our residents can live more independently for longer as much as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I would absolutely welcome the opportunity, I think, for my staff to attend the hub and look at the technology. I think technology is really key at the moment going forward. There's some technological sort of changes that we're undergoing as a force at the moment in terms of our mapping, for instance. So a much more up-to-date mapping, so we know exactly where our resources are, what the commitments are, and direct them to where the nearest available. So very much more responsive. We've all got issued with laptops. So very much my mantra is that once you've had your briefing in the morning, you go out and you stay out so you're visible in your communities. So there's no necessity for you to return to the station to update your workloads and your statements. You can actually do that out and about and be physically seen and visible. So there's lots of new things. There's something called Good Sam, which we've been using in the last 6 to 12 months in the control room, where we can actually undertake virtual statements with people online as opposed to physical attendance. So absolutely anything that would advance sort of technology and ways of working, then I'd welcome that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Petroni.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and thank you, Chief Superintendent. I am a big one for innovation, artificial intelligence and all that, but you alluded to in your previous question about physical presence in communities, and frequently it's raised about, I mean, I'm not sure how true it is. We never see the police around here. Last time I saw a police was a year ago. Now, some of that is over embellished and overhyped, but can you tell us a bit more about your visibility? You alluded to earlier, your visibility in the community. Just being seen offers a lot of reassurance to a lot of people.
So I think there's several aspects to that invisibility. When I talk about response policing, then it's quite a large area to police. So a lot of the time you see police vehicles driving from A to B, it's because they're going to emergency priority calls. What you also don't see is then our neighbourhood teams, our road traffic policing officers. We've got our joint firearms unit officers, which are deployed within the Gwent area as well. And we very much work on, we've got patrol plans in place as well within the Newport area. And this is very hypothetical, but if you've got issues in the St. Julian's ward or the Pill area, or indeed Alterine, then people will be tasked accordingly around the pertinent times in those areas. So you will see visibility in those areas. Other than that, the local teams will by and large be working there and walking their sort of patch, speaking to residents and reassuring people where appropriate. So it's just not encapsulated within response policing. There are other elements as well, and other sort of CSOs that we're looking at, and we've got a good level and number of resources in the Newport area at the moment. I can talk for response policing in terms of our establishment, and I think we're too short of our full establishment at the moment, which is realising the Operation Uplift, which was the national government's vision to uplift officers by 20,000. So as a force, we're uplifted by in the region of 167 officers, and Newport and the east of LPA have seen a large chunk of that as well. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Quick question, really. I need some help down in my ward, which is the Brighton ward, particularly by the Whiteheads sports facility. there's a old building called Deer Park House. It has been fenced off. Unfortunately, some teenagers keep smashing the fence down, causing a bit of ASB down there. There's a bit of violence, there's a bit of fire, a bit of drugs, a bit of fighting, verbal abuse to the residents in that area. So it's based and located in Frukanigi Court. Now, so previously we've had a lot of attention down there over the summer period last year and the year before. It's already started the last couple of weeks to start again, present itself. So I just wonder if you could throw some resources to that area in the next couple of weeks, please.
So did you say Clearwell Court?
No, Deer Park.
Deer Park.
Yeah, in Kanigi Court. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll outside this meeting, I'll speak to the local inspector and ensure that's done.
Councillor Ardern.
Thank you, presiding member, and welcome to the chamber, Chief Superintendent. As you climb up the social ladder, congratulations. In terms of, if I go straight into my question, in terms of closures of properties linked with county lines or Cuckooing, can you please provide us with the amount of houses closed in the Newport West area, so your patch? That would be brilliant. You may not have that to hand, but if you could possibly email that over, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't got that information to hand. I know when I spoke to Claire Drayton, who's the Crime and Disorder Reduction Officer for the Newport West area earlier today, I know that they closed a premises at the end of March in the Pill area of Newport, and I know that there's work underway to close a further one as well in the coming weeks. But what I will do, I'll get those details to hand and I'll feed that back if that's okay.
Okay, the last speaker I've got at the moment now is Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. Chief Inspector, we had a public meeting the other night and we had a gang of residents turned up, basically with pitchforks and flaming torches. They were concerned about antisocial behaviour again in the area around the Pontfaen shops in Liswerry. Now, this flares up time and time again, and often a few times it's ended up with a dispersal order. We explained to the residents, the more calls you make to the police, the more resources the police will put into the area. They all responded, we do try to ring them, but no one answers the phone. How would you advise people the best way of getting in touch and the best way of making sure that their concerns are notified so that appropriate action can be taken?
So the one thing that is on our website is that we've got, so all of the local officers have got their mobile phones on the website. So in terms of directness of contact, rather than waiting on the 101, which has improved immeasurably over the last sort of 12 months or so, is to actually then phone the local ward officer. And the reason I say that is just for consistency approach, because that ward officer, he or she, will have in-depth knowledge of the issues going on in there. And in any case, if it is flaring up again, then I would like to think that there will be dedicated patrol plans and patrols in that area in any case. You mentioned the word dispersal orders. Whilst I think that they're a very short-term solution to a long-term problem, and invariably sometimes all we end up doing is just moving the problem from one place to another. So for me, it's around us working with our partners, working with the community to put some long-term sort of preventative measures in place to stop that happening in the first place, and actually engaging with the kids and making sure we can then divert them into more meaningful things. But certainly going back to my point is, if we can, and they're on the website, on the Gwent Police website, under your ward area, you'll have details of all the local ward officers in your area. And I really welcome them, the community, to make contact with them.
Quickly then, I think we're time.
It's just a point to point out that they can also, if I'm correct, contact them on Facebook.
Yes, a good point. Yeah, so in terms of a direct social, we've got a social media desk which has been up and running probably for about 2.5-3 years now. We're the first force in the country to set that up. So it is 24/7. It is resourced throughout the entire day. It's based in our control room, and they are really responsive as well. So we have a lot of online crime that's reported as a result of that. And really good point, actually. Yeah. So if they have got access to the internet, certainly that's another option to go down. Thank you.
Right, that comes to the end of police questions. Can I thank you, Superintendent? Although I think you went back to Chief Inspector just now.
I went to Chief Inspector, Superintendent and Chief Super at one point, so
Right, we move on now to item 5, which is motion for council, City of Sanctuary. Councillor Corden is going to introduce this item and formally move the motion.
Thank you, presiding member. The motion reads as follows. This council is concerned by the UK government's illegal migration bill, which proposes to detain and later remove anyone in the UK, anyone who arrives in the UK on a small boat, meaning the Home Office will not consider any of their asylum claims, regardless of whether they have fled war or persecution for being a minority. These people seeking sanctuary will then be deported back to the country they have fled from, or a safe third world country. This third country. This third country could be Rwanda or any other country deemed safe by the UK government, but which may have a questionable record on human rights. The likely effect of this legislation will be to punish the most vulnerable people from across the world. Questions have been raised surrounding the legality of the bill and whether it is compliant with the European Convention on Human Rights and consistent with the 1951 Refugees Convention. The Prime Minister has also stated in writing that if you come to the UK illegally, you cannot benefit from our modern slavery protections. This council also notes the language which has been used to support this bill, which has the potential to cultivate and provide a platform for a culture of abuse, racism, and even violence against refugees and minorities. As an experienced dispersal area, this council has made a firm commitment in our corporate plan to establish Newport as a city of sanctuary. This council and the people of Newport have welcomed and accepted refugees and asylum seekers. We have a proud history of integration and inclusion. Our city is a more interesting, diverse and tolerant city because of this. This council calls into question the action of the UK government in bringing forward this legislation and calls upon the Prime Minister and his ministers to withdraw these proposals. We call upon the leader of the council to write to the Prime Minister in the strongest possible terms to outline our concerns. We would also request the leader of the council commits to ensuring that Newport City Council gives full support to all partners and stakeholders in Newport currently working towards City of Sanctuary status.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corden. Councillor Clark, you seconded the motion.
Yes, presiding member.
Do you want to speak now or later?
I'll hold back to it.
Thank you very much. Are there any amendments, or does any member wish to propose an amendment? Does anybody else want to speak to the motion? Councillor Druitt?
Presiding member, Newport has a long history of immigration. 200 years ago, many Irish and Somali immigrants came here. One of the Irish immigrants was my grandmother, and her mother, my great-grandmother. Another immigrant was my great-grandfather from Norway, and my grandfather from Finland. I think they integrated quite well here. 2 or 3 years ago, in the Westgate Hotel, which has become a symbol of free speech, there was an event held organised by the Red Cross, which was called Giving Voice, in which asylum seekers spoke about their experiences since they arrived here in Newport. How grateful they all were. Some spoke about the warm welcome they have received Some spoke about the friendship they found here, the opportunities that were waiting for them here. All spoke about the wish to get a job and the frustration of not being allowed by law to get one. We all pay accommodation, but they, asylum seekers, cannot contribute to that through employment taxation. This city has a proud tradition of supporting immigrants, and I strongly support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Druitt. I've got Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Over the last 20 years, when I'm not out campaigning or preparing for an election, one of my pet projects has been to research my family history. It was a very simple start, as my mother's maiden name is Kilman, and her German roots were easy to establish. Her grandparents were economic migrants who moved to the UK in the 1850s. Their investments in the shipping industry collapsed, and they're welcomed into the UK to start a new life and commence new ventures. Indeed, her great-great-grandfather was registered as a potato merchant in 1860. What I also discovered was that my ancestors on both sides of my family were Huguenots and silk weavers, and in the 1600s were persecuted as Protestants in France and were forced to move to the UK in fear of their lives. Equally, I have Jewish heritage, and my family were forced to flee from Eastern Europe in the early 1800s, fleeing pogroms where Jews were targeted and killed. I am the descendant of refugees who moved not just for economic purposes, but asylum seekers who came to the UK seeking sanctuary and were given a place of safety and opportunity to rebuild their lives. My ancestors were welcomed and quickly became active contributors to their local economies. As a country, we've always been proud of our history, and it's acknowledged and well known that many families can track their heritage to different countries. My story is not uncommon. We are an island of migrants, and recently we have seen this with movement of individuals fleeing war in Ukraine, Syria, and persecution in Afghanistan. What I cannot understand is why attitudes have changed. Why is this national government actively promoting a rhetoric or language that endorses xenophobic beliefs, racism, intolerance, and fear? What is this about? We currently have a skilled workforce shortage. Pubs, bars, restaurants, care homes, hospitals and farms are currently desperate to recruit, and those individuals who are forced to make illegal boat crossings want to come here to work. The process could be properly managed and stopped, with border control officers being based in France. Processing of asylum seekers could easily be speeded up, reducing the cost of temporary accommodation. None of this makes sense. Why promote hatred and division unless it's being used as a cynical attempt to remain in power after the next election? I support this motion. Our national government needs challenging, and I'm proud that Newport will become a city of sanctuary. We are a city founded on migration, and this will continue, and those who are most in need and vulnerable will be supported. Thank you.
Dead on 3 minutes. Right, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I fully support the motion presented here today. I was going to speak this evening on compassion and care and ask the UK government to show compassion. I was going to mention the story of my nana who arrived in Wales in the 1940s, tell you about her story, as all humans leaving, fleeing, running from countries they can no longer live or feel safe, they all have a story. But to ask him for compassion from this cruel and quite frankly morally corrupt Tory government would fall on deaf ears. So here's a different story. February 23, a record was broken. The backlog to process asylum applications hit 160,000. Time to process an asylum application is now years and not months. This has led to people being held in hotels as UK taxpayers' expense. This is not the fault of those seeking asylum, but the useless Tory government. Many sitting waiting as skilled doctors, nurses, teachers, just sat there waiting and existing. Rather than fixing what can be called a broken immigration system that potentially an illegal bill, they point the finger at the most vulnerable and desperate, creating a divisive and discriminatory atmosphere across the country. The bill as it stands might be illegal, might be unworkable, has also been called racist, and might actually make things worse. No life should be treated differently. No person should be treated as just a number. We all must remember we're only 3 paychecks away from losing everything. We're all only one war away from being asylum seekers or refugees, and we're only one policy away from being targeted by our UK government, just like the asylum seekers and refugees. Let's learn from history and have a more compassionate society. Therefore, I am proud and excited that Newport is working towards a city of sanctuary status. We are a compassionate city, recognising the contributions and rights of all those who live and work in this city, and fully support the request for the leaders to write to the Prime Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, presiding member. Can I just say before I speak, this was always going to be, I was in and ahhing whether to even speak on this, but I couldn't look myself in the mirror if I didn't. This is always going to be an emotive issue. It is, and that's the fact. And it's very, very difficult to debate. For me, it is a noble gesture, but a city like Newport, let's remind ourselves how famous we are for being a diverse and multicultural city. We're fantastic at it. We've got an amazing track record. But there are conversations that will take place around this noble gesture, as I say. However, the services that underpin our society and communities across Newport as they are all under pressure. And to deny it would be to deny the truth. This is the fact. The schools, a recent FOI tells us, I saw the information, there are capacity. Doctors, you can't get in. Dentist, like I said, all them services that underpin us, they are massively under pressure, and we can't deny that. But the biggest one for me currently, and my bread and butter, the work that I do within my community, I have to say it, I could show you my phone, I can't do that because of GDPR, but the housing inquiries I currently have from people who become very emotional, I've had tears, I get the odd success, but this is a tough call. Currently, we have around 10,000 on our waiting list. We have around 40 families in bed and breakfast and hotels. And for me, it'll be, if this does get voted through, it'll come down, the figures will be important. Like I say, it is a noble gesture, but figures for us, bearing in mind all what I've just said, they will be important. Impact is everything. And I genuinely believe on something as big as this, and I do believe we need more information, like I say, figures. I think some sort of consultation process with the city residents is not a bad ask. I mean, somebody else has mentioned a referendum. I'm not going for that. But I just think as a council, we have a duty to everybody, and that's to include this motion tonight, to consider it and debate it in a fair and compassionate way. So for me, they are my points, and they are the points that will be, no doubt, sounded out right across social media. I'll predict that as I sit here. So yeah, a noble cause, but I do think it does need consultation with the residents. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Councillor Whitehead. That was on 3 minutes as well, a couple of seconds over. Well done. I've got Councillor Marshall now.
Thank you, presiding member. Some of the points raised by my colleague just before me, I think, comes down to the underfunding by the Tory government, and this is just one of the side pieces to try and bait away the kind of. But back to the Newport side of things, I'd like to note that we do have a proud history of integration and inclusion. as a native, sorry, not as a native, I've actually come to live in the city of Newport. I found the city is more interesting, diverse and more tolerant than many others around. And I find that, you know, basically it's without note to highlight about the important work that we do as a city as well, such as the, you know, supporting a number of young people through the unaccompanied asylum-seeking young people through our council's international team within the council, and our fantastic and great partners that allow us to do that provision through Mark Seymour and others that actually, you know, provide such a fantastic service alongside us. And, you know, as colleagues have raised also, let's not forget the city has been a city of sanctuary for many of years. And we're not talking about years, we're talking about decades, even more than a century of that. The Irish and Victorian times and Gortamore, the famine, where a lot of Irish people sought some type of resolution for the you know, the horrific terms of what they had to put up with in Ireland at that time. And the kind of, you know, the support that the people of Newport provided. And as they moved out from the ports and across our cities, they are part of every part of fibre of our city today, and to right. And we should allow that to occur further. We are a city, we are proud of our diversity and our growth as, you know, within that diversity, and proud to share that within our communities, whatever it might be. Like we've shared, you know, various functions of iftars, various functions, you know, around the city of different religions, different groups and cultures. And it's amazing to have that as part of our city to make it more vibrant and to make that city a city of sanctuary. And would call on the leader to write to the Prime Minister as well, just highlighting a lot of, you know, highlighting about the vile language that's used, you know, really like stoking up the fire pit, which is absolutely disgusting. It's language that we don't need. We are more compassionate than this. We are better than this as a country, and we shouldn't allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. You were breaking up a little bit through that, but I think we got the gist of what you're saying anyway. Councillor Forsey.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. I wish to express my support for this motion and my strong opposition to the anti-immigration bill. I am proud that Newport is working to become a city of sanctuary, and I'd like to put on record, along with Stephen Marshall, my appreciation of the work of Mark Seymour and his team. The sanctuary, Stowhill Newport, aims to promote the well-being of asylum seekers and refugees in Newport, and I would like to say thank you to everyone who works there and volunteers there, and please keep up the good work. There is so much misinformation around the topic of asylum seekers, and the sad aspect of this is that much of it is done for political purposes. There's misinformation such as, why do they all want to come here? Well, they don't. France and Germany receive many more applications than the UK. In 2021, Germany received 191,000 applicants, France 121,000 applicants, Spain 65,000 applicants, and in the UK it was just 56,000. Not only are we receiving less applicants than other countries, we're choosing to process them more slowly so that the backlog builds up. This is a manufactured backlog for political purposes. There's misinformation such as, they're all young men, they're just economic migrants, they're not asylum seekers. They are asylum seekers. In 2021, the initial decisions by the Home Office of male applicants aged between 18 and 29, 73% of them were successful. This means that a highly sceptical Home Office agreed that these people could prove a well-founded fear of persecution. Many of these were also able to prove their cases at appeal, so they are genuine asylum seekers. There is so much misinformation about the Rwanda deal that this will stop the small boats crossing. It won't. The Rwanda deal is the worst of both worlds. It won't work, and it's a waste of money. Israel has already tried this and abandoned the scheme because it didn't work. We've wasted in excess of 120 million on this scheme already. It's not so much oven ready as half baked. The forced deportation of refugees to Rwanda is a clear violation of their human rights. These individuals have fled violence and persecution in their home country. They are seeking safety and protection of ours. To send them back to the place they came from is morally and ethically wrong. We need to recognise that immigration and seeking asylum is a fundamental human right, and no one should be punished for exercising that right. We need to open our hearts and open our borders to those seeking safety and protection, and work to creating a more welcoming and inclusive society. The way to solve—
Councillor Forsey, you're well over the 3 minutes.
Sorry, one sentence more. The way to solve this problem is to enable safe routes for asylum seekers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cock.
Right, thank you, Presiding Member. If any of you have, I'm sure a lot of you have been to Caerleon and you walk down Cross Street, and I'm sure a lot of you will have noticed that there's a plaque on the wall of Pendragon House, which commemorates the fact that during 1939, that the house was used to accommodate young refugees from the Basque Country, people who were desperate to get people and families desperate to get their children out of a particular part of Spain that was receiving the full venom of Franco and the fascists and their Nazi allies. And one of the first things I did actually in terms of attending a major event was to attend the annual commemoration in Caerleon of the link with the Basque Country. And it really was. It was an absolutely tremendous occasion. When there were Basque visitors, there were cultural events, there were speakers, the First Minister came along. And what came out of that really is just how proud people were in Caerleon of what their ancestors had done in terms of giving people refuge or escaping from the horrors of war. And then we come to today. And again, we've got conflict, we've got people who are desperate, people who have watched family members shot dead in front of them, people who've been bombed and shelled, seen family members raped, that desperate that they undertake an incredible journey filled with the most incredible hazards. Many of them actually die and don't make it. And they come to us and they ask for sanctuary. And the way this bill, and let's get this straight, we're not having a discussion about immigration per se or about asylum seekers per se. I'd agree with Councillor Whitehead on one thing. There's a debate to be had about that because it's a problem right across the Western world, how we manage it. But the way these people are being treated when they arrive in the UK is nothing but absolutely shameful. They're treated as criminals. They're packed off to a country thousands of miles away that they know nothing of, that is simply accepting refugees, an authoritarian regime with appalling human rights record that is simply trying to curry favour with the West by accepting refugees. We pack them off and wash our hands of them. And it is absolutely shameful. And whereas I think people from Caerleon can look back at 80 years with absolute pride, I have not the slightest doubt that in the future, when anybody looks back at this episode of this bill and what it proposes to do, they'll regard it as one of our greatest moments of absolute shame. And it is absolutely nothing else but that. And I would urge anybody, I think there are—
Councillor Cox, can you wind up?
Okay, I'll wind up. I'll say one thing. I believe very, very strongly that there are occasions when elected representatives need to show some leadership and do what is right. And to actually oppose this bill and the shameful way it's proposing to treat refugees is the only option anybody's got if they believe in any morality and any right.
Thank you very much. Councillor Reynolds.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Got the technology to work at long last. The illegal immigration bill. How brilliantly named is that? Illegal. I think it's almost certainly going to be proved to be an illegal bill. But I think it's been badly named. It should be the illegal, immoral, inhuman bill. I feel a bit like Councillor Cox, that I feel quite ashamed that although it's not my party that's put this forward, as a country, we're associated with something like this. I can't imagine how desperate somebody must be to flee their own country, get in a small inflatable dinghy in a place they don't know, and go on the open seas, risking everything. The desperation is just unimaginable. And for us to be proposing that we criminalize these people for trying to do something for their families in those sorts of situations, just beggars belief. Absolutely beggars belief. I've lost track of what I was going to say. I'll leave it there, but I really do want to support this this motion, because we have to. That's what I was going to say. As elected members, one of my favourite things I say in quite a few meetings is that as politicians at any level, it's not our job just to follow public opinion and do things just to get votes. Yes, that's part of politics. I get that. But there are times when, as Councillor Cox just said, we just have to stand up and do what's right. And if that's unpopular, then tough, because our job as politicians is to persuade people that it might not be popular, but this is the right thing to do. And I think this is one of those times. This motion that we're putting forward is one of those times where we say, this bill is wrong. We have to stand against it, and we have to do what's not just what's right, but what's humane. What's humane. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Mawrth.
Thank you, presiding member. The important thing about debate is to listen to what's being said and in some cases amend your views. I heard Councillor Davis say these people are forced to make boat trips, small boat trips. What he didn't say was from France. These are dangerous crossings from safe countries. I heard another councillor say they don't want to come here. Okay, and I'm trying to reconcile these things that are being said. Now, the motion itself, if you take away all the words, the verbiage that are padding, boils down to two things. The motion calls upon the leader of Newport City Council to write to the UK Prime Minister in the strongest possible terms. Okay, if this administration has concerns at the way the UK is carrying out its manifesto commitment, is it not the right and proper route that they deal with the local opposition MPs, firstly, and not cynically bypass them? We have two elected MPs across the city who represent the people of Newport, and I believe the councillor that raised this motion actually is well versed with that. These two MPs are paid a combined salary of 170,000. You know, they're there to do that job, and they're paid to do that job. The councillors who have put this motion forward could make better use of their time liaising with their MPs if they feel so strongly about the UK government's illegal immigration bill, as they've demonstrated they do. The second part of the motion is it also requests the leader of the council commits to ensuring that Newport City Council gives full support to all partners and stakeholders in Newport currently working towards City of Sanctuary status. Again, listening, who can argue that Newport today is not a welcoming, open, inclusive and diverse city? On this point, surely, we don't need a motion to request the leader to do her job and fulfill her commitments. Just get on with it in accordance with your own manifesto, on which you will continue to be judged by this opposition party at least, and by the residents of Newport. The conclusion I come to is, in a city of extremely limited resources, as mentioned by Councillor Whitehead, I'm just going to quote an NCC officer from an email that I received today. I'm quoting now. We are experiencing a significant housing crisis at the moment, and whilst we take into consideration client circumstances, we do not necessarily have the social housing.
Councillor Montfort, can you wind up? You're over the 3 minute.
Wow. Thank you. Oh, wind up. A worrying response indeed from a prospective yet ill-equipped city or even council of sanctuary. Some might indeed ask, in light of this and other local reports coming in almost daily, are there any other cities or towns in the UK that can assist and take care of our desperate residents in need of shelter, accommodation, general health care, social care and basic education? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Ali Wami.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Presiding Member. Yeah. Yes, I have absolutely no problem whatsoever in fully supporting the motion and in acknowledging, really, we are already a city of sanctuary. We have been for some time, actually, because I go back to 2006 when I was mayor of the city, and I actually was involved in meetings with the then Labour ministers about actually Newport accepting its status as a dispersal city. So I believe we are already with that status. But I support the motion, and we support the motion because, as several of the speakers have spoken, yesterday migrants or immigrants are today good citizens. I think we can see that. I think a lot of us can go back. Not me personally, but I can believe a lot of my other colleague here can go back to tracing their ancestry and tracing the fact that they've come to Newport as economic migrants. So there is absolutely no problem with being a migrant. You know, that's what people do. They travel, seeking work. And I think the problem with the government currently and with the current sort of atmosphere is that they seem to, feel embarrassed to actually say that someone is an economic migrant. People have always followed the jobs and the economic opportunities. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But can I just say that I do have some agreement with one of the speakers. You know, we are a council here and our facilities are limited, and we have to take into consideration, and this is because we care so much, not for just being welcoming to people coming, seeking sanctuary and safety in the city of Newport. And yes, economic opportunity, but also for the people we are also representing. I think people have approved in the city of Newport over decades that they are welcoming to people coming from outside, and especially those who need help and need sanctuary. But what we have got to be careful with, and this is where the government policy is wrong, they want to have it on the cheap. So I have said always that we do have a duty of care for the people of Newport, for our residents, as well as those we are giving sanctuary to. I've had a couple of occasions where planning has been put really to do things on the cheap, and we must not do that.
Councillor Ali Wami, your 3 minutes is up. Can you wind up, please, quickly?
Yeah, okay. So what I'm saying, I will be supporting this motion, but can I suggest, if it is possible also, to just copy the letter also to go to the leader of the opposition, because the real fight for this is in Parliament rather than in this chamber. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ali Wami. Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Member. I totally agree with many of the things that have been said over there, and I think the government policy on this is absolutely abhorrent and something to be ashamed of. But myself and my colleagues will be abstaining in this vote, and the reason that we will be doing that is because we're here to represent the people of Newport as Newport councillors. How often do we spend time in this chamber debating the city centre, the lack of facilities our kids have to play in, the state of council premises, how long it takes to answer a phone at the civic centre? We're here to represent the people of Liswery and put forward things that we can make a difference in. We don't see that the council should be wasting its time sending letters to the Prime Minister that would just be flicked away. We're here to deal with Newport matters, and we see this as not something that's our remit. We will totally support 100% both our MPs if they want help to help them at parliamentary level where this should be debated. We've got many problems of our own. This isn't one of them. Apologies. Yeah, my colleague Pat and I, we both go to a church which has now got over 50% immigrants. They fit in beautifully. They fit in fantastically. They have the full support of the congregation. They work as one. They bring an awful lot of enrichment to the area. Totally agree with what's said, but cannot support it because we're here to represent the people of Liswerry and things that we can actually have impact on. And we don't think this is one of them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Evans.
Yeah, thank you, President. Can I just clarify, when Councillor Stokecourt read out the motion, was she not going to speak to it, or are you just going to reply to it? So you're only going to do one speech? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, fine, because I was a bit surprised. I thought I was waiting for her to speak to the motion, but she didn't. And following on pretty much from Councillor Morris's point, I don't know anybody, I don't know about you, but my inbox is full of complaints, mostly on the lines of, I'm paying a huge amount more for my council tax, yet you can't fix the potholes, you'll be collecting the bins less often, I can't even phone now to book a place at the recycling centre, or even phone to complain about a missed collection. Then there's a housing crisis, which we've heard about, residents not being able to get their children into their local schools, which you've also heard about, record waiting lists, doctors and dental surgeries full to the brim. These have a massive detrimental impact on our residents. I can't remember genuinely the last time somebody contacted me to say that we are not doing enough to help asylum seekers or refugees. This motion is just a distraction, politically motivated, and nothing more than a petty snipe at the UK government. Successive UK Conservative governments have a long and proud history of welcoming refugees and asylum seekers from around the world. In fact, I mean, I've got pages of statistics for Councillor Forsey if you want to see alternatives to there. But just to give you one example, since 2015, we've offered sanctuary to over 450,000 people through our global safe and legal routes like Refugee Family Reunion and the UK resettlement schemes, as well as our country-specific routes from Ukraine, Hong Kong, Afghanistan and Syria. 450,000, that's 3 cities the size of Newport. 3 cities the size of Newport. And we too welcome genuine ones to our city to integrate and provide valuable cultural and economic contributions. But what this motion does is attack those across the city who voted to leave the EU to ensure we were able to decide our own laws and policies. And just remember, the significant majority in Newport voted exactly to do this. So if you really want to be known as a city of democracy, why not hold a referendum and see if this is a priority of local residents? I suspect what they really want you to do is actually get on with a day job, like Councillor Al-Nuami put it so succinctly earlier, and provide better services for our citizens.
Thank you, Councillor. The leader, did you want to come in?
Thank you, presiding member. Before I begin, the standing orders actually allow for a point of a matter to be properly explained. Might I properly explain this matter before I make my contribution, please?
Yes, you've got the floor.
Thank you. So we've heard reference here to the commitment to become a city of sanctuary. I'd like to provide clarity to the chamber on this particular item. So you are absolutely correct. It was a Newport Labour commitment to Newport becoming formally recognised as a city of sanctuary. So colleagues, look around you, 35 out of 51 seats held by Labour candidates who stood on that manifesto commitment, a significant majority and a significant mandate. So the clarity is there. There is already a mandate for this council from the citizens of Newport with regard to this commitment. This commitment is actually embedded, presiding member, for purposes of clarity, this is embedded in Wellbeing Objective 3 of the corporate plan. Newport is a supportive city where communities and care are at the heart of what we do. Point number 6 in that section of the plan, Newport will be a city of sanctuary which supports asylum seekers, refugees, and our global community to settle and become part of our community. That commitment, presiding member, is embedded in the corporate plan, which was fully agreed by Council in November 2022, including all opposition leaders. So everybody in this chamber has already agreed unanimously to that point in the corporate plan, which is based on an election commitment that the people of the majority of the electorate of Newport voted for, that we would make that commitment. That's the point of clarity. So thank you for allowing me to provide that.
Mr. Presiding Member, can I raise?
Sit down a minute. Point of order what? What's the point of order?
Can I raise a point of further clarity? And on the point of further clarity, when the City of Sanctuary was brought before this council, it was not mentioned that the City of Sanctuary would be.
Wait a minute. That's not a point of order.
No, it's a point of clarity, just like the leader.
No, you said a point of order.
Point of clarity. When we supported the City of Sanctuary, we never supported
Wait a minute. Sit down, please. Please sit down.
Yeah, okay.
Sit down. The leader was given an explanation of what had happened. That's all it was, wasn't it? It's what?
Her explanation is misleading and incorrect.
We must have to take that again somewhere, because obviously she was just given a clarification of what she was saying, really, on what was the election manifesto.
Presiding member, if I may, I would like an apology for that particular statement, because the information I've provided in my last comments was factually correct, is documented in council minutes as well. So I would like an apology.
Mr. Presiding Member, the information she gave you when it came to this council did not say that we are supporting illegal immigration in any shape or form. This is what she is referring to. I did not support illegal immigration. I did, however, support the City of Sanctuary, but we do not support drug running.
Councillor Rotley, wait a minute. Councillor Rotley, if you want to speak on the motion, do, but that's nothing to do with what the leader has said. If you want to raise an issue on the motion, you've got every right to speak on it. Okay, but what the leader was saying there was she was making a clarification on that. Okay, and obviously, and if it proves that we can get the information, and then when the information comes, then maybe you will want to give an apology if it's correct. Leader, you want?
I do indeed. Thank you very much. I can assure you it is absolutely correct. Furthermore, I can tell you that Councillor Routley supported the aims and objectives of the report, and the opposition group would try to do everything they could to ensure that the administration would do what they proposed within the report, and had always supported Newport. Your words, Councillor Routley. Now, can I have my comments?
Wait, Councillor Routley, I'm not having people shouting across the chamber. I'm just telling you, yeah, but you're sat down. She's got the floor at the moment. I've got you down. Excuse me, I've got you down to speak after, okay? But no, you're shouting down. That's rude. Show a bit of respect. When the person's on the floor, you must let them speak. Whether you agree with it or not, you've got the right in a minute then to come. I'm not having this debate with you. I'm just telling you later on, you can come in and speak on it, okay? Leader.
Thank you, presiding member. Presiding member, like others in this chamber, I am a proud Newportonian. I love my city, my community, my birthplace. My high school, only a few streets away from here, offered a rich and diverse cultural experience. Here in the heart of the city centre, pupils from different social, cultural and economic backgrounds came together from all across our city. We learned from each other, we learned about each other. Now I look across this chamber and I see a group of elected members who have all chosen Newport to be their home. We love our city, our communities, our diversity, our rich cultural heritage. And it's a privilege for me in my leadership role to meet people from all different backgrounds. I've listened to the experiences of the members of our cultural hub, worked with different faith communities, been welcomed into our schools and shared time with community groups. I've welcomed refugees and asylum seekers to our great city. I've been truly humbled by the stories of the people that I've met. People who have had to flee for their lives, leaving their homes, their families, their lives behind. These are stories of survival, of resilience, and of hope. The narrative created by the UK government to support its illegal immigration bill risks undermining decades of inclusion and fragmenting community cohesion. We cannot stay silent on this. This week, presiding member, I will have the privilege of attending Maindy Primary School. Maindy Primary School has become a school of sanctuary, meaning that it's recognised for being a place of welcome and safety, where the school builds empathy and intercultural awareness. There are around 520 pupils on roll, with approximately 93% of pupils who have English as an additional language, with over 42 languages being spoken. They've recently received accreditation as the first school of sanctuary in Newport, and they also hold the Bronze Peace Marla certification. Both are central to their work. The community work in the school has long been a feature of their core purpose at Maindy. They've had to develop clear pathways with a range of partners in relentless work to ensure the basic needs of local families are met to allow pupils to thrive in school. The school aims to create a positive change in how families, pupils and communities interact all around the school. Presiding member, I've reflected on my experiences growing up here in Newport and how I've benefited from cultural diversity. The children growing up here today.
You're off to the 3 minutes. Can you wind up, please?
Yeah, last sentence. The children growing up here today are very much at the forefront of my mind, and it's for those children and their families that I am proud to accept this motion and undertake the actions that the Chamber are asking of me today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Ropley, do you want to speak to the motion? Okay. All right. Councillor Clark, do you want to? Yeah. Oh, sorry. All right. Okay. Sorry. Sorry, Councillor Rich, you did have your hand up. I'm sorry. Okay.
Thank you, presiding member. Just as most of my colleagues in this chamber today, I'm very proud of our city, and I'm very proud that Newport has always been a welcoming city. And it's right that we play our part in supporting the legitimate aspect of asylum seekers. That is, those who have entered the country through the correct channels. And yes, I agree, we have a duty of care towards these people to help them rebuild their lives. But the motion proposed today has skewed the aim of a city of sanctuary and dressed it up with another purpose by aligning it with illegal immigration. It has to be said that even a city of sanctuary has to have a limit on the amount of people who can enter the city, as first and foremost, we have a duty of care towards a resident of Newport who have to live and work here and also contribute financially to the overall running of the city. Scratch beneath the surface and you'll see that the infrastructure within our city is already at crisis point in many areas. There are reportedly many thousands of people looking for housing in Newport, for example, and notwithstanding this, many of our primary schools are oversubscribed and have waiting lists. I had a lengthy discussion myself with a distressed parent recently who could not get their child into any schools local to them and can only facilitate either a dangerous long walk or a taxi journey to schools some distance away.
neither of which is conducive to good education for them. The UK government has a mandate to control the illegal immigration into this country and has to take what it regards as the most prudent steps to carry this through, and is a duty of care to the UK citizens. Newport City Council similarly has its own duty of care mandate to provide for the citizens of Newport. So as councillors, we have to focus on the day-to-day tasks of ensuring enough housing is available for residents, there are enough school places for all that need them, that the bins are collected regularly, that social care services are supported, and vulnerable people are cared for. This is what we have to focus our time, efforts, and energy on. This is why the people of Newport elected us as their representatives, to focus on local infrastructure for local people, not to spend time, effort, and resources on debating whether we as a council should seek to criticise policy decisions made by the UK government. As such, presiding member, I cannot support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jones. The mic beside you. No. You'll have to switch the other one off.
Is that, we start again. Is that okay? Yeah, excellent. So, thank you, presiding member. So my storyline on this is quite short. Everybody's exposed and discussed every element of that we can debate, really. But I was born and bred in Newport. I'm down many generations of Newport people, and being a local kid, son of Newport, I'd just like to say I'm here as a councillor to represent my ward and people of Newport. And listen to the people in Newport, they have got concerns with what we're debating tonight. I must admit, Newport is a welcoming place. We've had the Irish down into the Pearl area over the years with steelworks. My own family, some members have moved around looking for work in the Midlands with steelworks and such like that. So within the country, we're migrants into different towns and cities. So it is respectful to everybody that there's freedom of movement, but we have to consider the facts. And the facts are, we've got a shortage of school places, shortage of homes, shortage of all facilities. And people in the street talking to me in my ward, I'm sure it's on many other wards, they all feel the same. We're at capacity. We just raised the council tax, but the bins for 3 weeks. We got potholes everywhere. And these are the real subjects that the people in my ward talk to me day in, day out. If I mention to them immigration, it's in the paper today. I've had about 16 phone calls about it in the Argus today, the report on it. That's the first they've seen of it, first they've heard about it. They want to know what's going on. I try to share the best evaluation of what I can explain to them, and they are not interested. They're local people living in Newport, paying council tax to Newport City Council, and they want to be first, not second, when considered what the council is doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Rubley.
It's imperative that we address the pressing issue of homelessness and the inadequate access to education, housing and medical care in Newport and indeed throughout Wales, Mr. Presiding Member. Whilst I commend the notion of a city...
Councillor Rubley, can I suggest you use the other mic because there's a lot of feed.
Thank you. Whilst let's try this. I don't know what's... somebody's got something on somewhere. Okay. Start again, Will. Whilst I commend the notion of the city of sanctuary, it's important to consider that other cities may be able to assist us in providing refuge for those in need. And I guess we have to work on a UK-wide basis. However, it is critical that we around this chamber do not engage in political posturing. And somehow I believe that the motion is a political posturing distraction. But rather than address the root causes of the crisis at hand, and the root causes are quite simple: the current housing crisis, the lack of basic needs and services. Jeepers, residents need these to be addressed as a matter of urgency. Newport has a long history of providing sanctuary. However, I cannot stress enough that the needs of our own Indigenous population must come first. We must prioritise their needs and to ensure they are not left behind in the pursuit
Point
of
of order,
providing
Chair.
refuge for others.
Sit down, please. Point of order.
Councillor Routley is being far too over emotional to make his point clearly and succinctly.
Councillor Hewing. Right, sorry, okay. Right. I don't know that was relevant, but I understand where you're coming from. Right. Councillor Routley.
What a petty and
Councillor
pathetic.
Routley, I have made the comment. I did make the comment to Councillor Druitt. Please leave it there.
It's still petty. We must prioritise the needs.
Councillor Routley, you keep Councillor Routley. Please don't come back with this all the time, okay?
Are you off now?
Who is off?
We must acknowledge the reality that our social housing and the resources that we have are well beyond the limit of anybody's expectation. We have a duty of care towards finding solutions to this significant housing, education and welfare crisis that we find our city in. Newport citizens must never be overlooked and cast aside, as you would suggest an open door policy here. For just because of political posturing, we must make sure that there's enough education spaces, which we don't have. We must make sure there's enough healthcare spaces, which we don't have. And we got tens of thousands of people who are desperately seeking proper accommodation. I want to have a policy that is meaningful. But it's so good bringing refugees here if you can't house them, educate them and look after them. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see anybody else wants to. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hewing.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I hadn't intended to speak on this debate, although I strongly support the motion. I am the son of immigrants, albeit we've been here an awful long time. We've been here since about 1820. And when they came, there were about 10,000 people in Newport, give or take a few. The common man didn't have the vote. And I'm sure there would have been a few more that have slipped in since. But there's 150,000 of us today. We've come from somewhere. Are the opposition suggesting we have a walled city again, where we limit the number of immigrants from Pontypool, or maybe Merthyr, or maybe even Bristol? But there's a
sorry, that's unnecessary. It was not something which was raised. We're not looking for walls. I think the clarification was about we can't have uncontrolled immigration.
Anyway.
Sorry, point of order. I believe Councillor Routley said we should only support our Indigenous population.
Would you like?
Can I say something? Look, I think this is getting out of hand here, all right? Because you did say that. There's no question about it. Now, all I'm saying is we're coming to the end of the debate. Most people have spoken here. Now, I think we really need to wind this debate up now. Okay? Right, Councillor Uri.
Thank you. But I would point out the inconsistency in the opposition's points this evening. Just, what, a month and a half ago, you were objecting to the budget increases. Yet today, you're complaining about the roads, the schools, the housing and everything else in Newport, it seems to me. Now, What would you have done if you'd reduced the council tax as you suggested last month? There would be even more holes. There would be even less resources going into schools. You can't have the penny and the bun. You either support Newport with the budget that we as a council passed last month, with limited resources, or you need really to address the points you've made this evening, and perhaps you ought to reconsider your positions. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you, Councillor. Tony.
Thank you, Presiding Member. And thanks to Councillor Style Corton for bringing this motion forward. It's a much needed debate. And I've heard everyone speak, and I heard the opposition speak about this issue. And I'm worried about the dichotomy between the fight of resources between people who are coming over here seeking asylum and those who are already here. That is the false dichotomy. They want us to have that debate, to fight over the last biscuit out of 10, because the people who are having 9 biscuits out of 10 are sat in Westminster with Rishi Sunak, a multi-millionaire, and all the millionaires and all the bungs on the PPE. They don't want us to talk about that. They want us to talk about immigration, since they put the bill forward. So to get us to blame those communities and those communities to blame those communities for services that are struggling because they're being under-resourced. And being under-resourced, so they don't want us to talk about it, so they want us to blame someone else and blame each other. And that's the divisiveness. It's a false dichotomy. Those at the top, the richest, want us to argue amongst ourselves. That's what they want. We won't fall for that. We will band together, fight together to get the resources we need for the services so all of us can have them.
Thank you very much. I think we've had a fair debate on this now. Councillor Clark, did you want to come in now as...
I will come in. I've sort of just come in anyway about 10 minutes ago. Thank you, Presiding Member. This motion for me is about both knowing who you are morally and respecting laws. Morally, we all sit here, as we do today, and say and believe, we honestly believe that we are doing the right things in life, not just for ourselves, not just for our friends and family, but for all, for all. And this is exactly what this motion's about. What the UK government is trying to do is not only wrong, it's dangerous. This bill will turn away children and women who are escaping from sex traffickers, who are fleeing for their lives. This bill could send them straight back to putting their lives at risk by the people they're trying to escape. So I imagine those people don't see this as a waste of time. It will send back the people who have helped and worked with the UK government, for example, in Sudan, Iran, Afghanistan, who were promised by the UK government they wouldn't be left behind. It will send them back, putting them and their families at severe risk. When they were told that we would be with them, we would stand with them. Is that right? Legally, in a recent interview where the Deputy Prime Minister, Oliver Bowden, was asked, would there be discretion in the bill for the Home Secretary to ignore European Court rulings? His answer was, there will be a Section 39, which would and could ignore court orders overriding decisions made by the European Court of Human Rights. Remember, governments must respect and follow not just domestic, but also international law. You cannot just break the law to suit a political agenda. This law, by this Tory government, will effectively commit human rights abuse without consequences. That's what's going to happen. So is this right? And finally, you'll see in the UK right-wing media the spin on this. They know exactly what they're doing. But what's really disappointed me is recent posts I've seen on some of Newport's social media sites stating, and I quote, that this council motion proposes to make Newport a city of sanctuary for illegal immigrants. That's what it says, and we know where that post is. That's what it says. Show me in this motion where it states that, because it doesn't. I'm proud to live in Newport, proud of the history of Newport and helping others. So this is why this motion should be passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Councillor Corton.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'm very proud to close today's debate and indeed to have brought it to tonight's council meeting, and thank you to James for seconding it. Before I start, I just want to remind everyone that this motion sets out to condemn the government's illegal migration bill, recently described by the Archbishop of York as cruelty without purpose, and to ensure we continue our work to become a city of sanctuary, something as a Home Office dispersal area we're already working towards. Throughout all of the contributions we've heard in this room, from the stories of family members fleeing who came here for safety, to the amazing news about Mainsey Primary School becoming a school of sanctuary, to the unfortunate commentary from the opposition, one thing kept crossing my mind: there, but for the grace of God. Now, I'm in no way religious, but this is a phrase I try and carry through my life. Had I not been born in a stable country, then perhaps in another life, I might be the frightened, cold and lonely mother clambering into a dinghy with a baby and a toddler, desperate to escape war or death threats to get to family in the UK, as I have nobody else in the world. With this another life, perhaps any one of us would be the Afghan serviceman who risked everything to help the British forces in Afghanistan, who was promised safety and whom the UK government failed by not moving quickly enough to get him out, who had no option but to risk life and limb travelling across the English Channel in an overloaded, incompetent vessel to get away from the Taliban. With this another life, I could find myself in limbo, living in a hotel for 2 years due to the incompetence of a government that has lost control of our asylum system, stacking up an asylum backlog of more than 138,000 by the end of last month, up from just under 6,000 in March 2011, even though the number of people crossing the Channel hasn't increased by anywhere near that ratio. In another life, it could be any one of us in that dinghy. Now, it always baffles me when elected representatives get up to speak without having the full facts. So I thought I would take this opportunity to dispel a few myths, untruths and some disinformation that surrounds this topic. So first of all, let's deal with the term illegal immigrants, as raised by Councillor Routley. There is no such thing as an illegal or bogus asylum seeker. Under international law, anyone has the right to apply for asylum in a country that has signed the 1951 Convention and to remain there until the authorities have assessed their claim. So to be clear, there is no influx of illegal immigrants here or headed here. Something else I hear all the time, and which was raised by Councillor Evans, is that people should use safe and legal routes to get here. The government often quotes statistics for migrants from UK, Ukraine, Hong Kong and Afghanistan, saying that these people arrived by safe routes. But these individuals haven't claimed asylum. They've arrived via bespoke visa routes, and that's very, very different. Asylum seekers must make a claim on UK soil. This is the Geneva Convention ruling. So someone from any other country can only seek sanctuary when they arrive in the UK via land, sea or air. The Home Secretary herself was asked how someone from an African country destroyed by war or famine might apply for asylum and then get here via a safe and legal route. She couldn't answer the question because there aren't safe and legal routes, and this is one of the core problems. Something else that's been spoken about is that we have no housing, no doctors, no school places, and we can't take any more. Newport is a dispersal area. The Home Office, run by the UK government, sends asylum seekers here while they process their applications before they're dispersed to different locations across the UK. And we welcome them and we provide them with the sanctuary they seek with the help of groups like the Sanctuary Project. Let's not forget, many of the GPs, dentists and nurses working in the city are former asylum seekers granted refugee status who now care for us on a daily basis. And yes, every single town and city in the UK has a social and rented housing problem. But asylum seekers aren't jumping the queue, they're not making it worse. We should probably take a look at the woefully inadequate local housing allowance set by the UK government as a starting point to answer that one. Referring to Councillor Mogford's point about France being a safe country, Asylum seekers do not need to stay in the first safe country they get to, but it is a fact that most displaced people stay in a neighbouring country so they can head back home at the earliest opportunity. Those who do come here do so because they have links, where they will receive the support and the love that they need. I am proud that Newport is a multicultural city where people can and do find sanctuary. There are people in my life and the lives of my children who have fled war-torn countries and were welcomed here to safety, and others whose families have escaped religious persecution and were welcomed to the UK, who found sanctuary in our city. They're amazing. They bring so much to our lives, not least their love and kindness, but their bravery and their tolerance. And my heart breaks every time I hear the Home Secretary spew some vile anti-asylum diatribe in an effort to shore up votes. I am proud that in some of our schools and areas of our city, more than 30 languages are spoken, and I am proud that our children and young people are tolerant, empathetic, open-minded world citizens. Councillor Rightly unfortunately used the trope Indigenous population. There aren't many of us in this room who can't trace our families back to another land or another culture. There aren't many of us that can't say that sometime in our distant heritage, our family didn't arrive here to start a life. Even me, whose first family member to arrive here in the UK, came on a boat in 1066 with his mate William, but that's a story for another day. It's this wonderful melting pot of cultures, languages and ideas that have melded together to form the Britain and the Newport we all love, live and work in today. And believe you me, in generations to come, there won't be many of us who don't have descendants that will find themselves displaced as climate refugees, seeking safety and sanctuary elsewhere. There are wars and conflicts all over the world that drive humanitarian crises. Yemen, Somaliland, Sudan, Syria, and it's these crises that are driving the business of the traffickers. And let's consider this. Under the government's new bill, children who flee war in Sudan today, who arrive here, however they can, to seek asylum, will be detained and deported. That's children of all ages. So isn't it about time the government were kinder and showed a bit more empathy? Instead of focusing on making headlines about how about they focus on action and getting stuff done? Even their own MPs aren't fans of this bill or the language used around it. On Friday, 32 pages of amendments were proposed to the bill, including asks from Theresa May, a former Prime Minister. Instead of inciting hatred with inflammatory language to appease the right-wing press, how about they put their shoulder to the wheel and get on with processing the tens of thousands of asylum applications that are crammed in the system? Instead of wasting tens of millions of pounds on a scheme in Rwanda that everyone can see is doomed to fail, that breaks the Geneva Convention, this government could employ caseworkers and specialist staff to support everyone that's in the system. And as a Labour government will do, develop a cross-border police service to crack down on the traffickers. Unfortunately, right now we have a panicked government that doesn't know whether it's coming or going, and it only has two things left in its armoury: division and hatred. And all they can do is attack minority groups, spreading half-truths, using hideous language in a last-ditch bid to try and keep a Prime Minister in number 10. And it's awful. There's no humanity. They're using the lives of people, of children, of those who need help and love like they don't matter, just to make headlines. These lives, these people, they're not petty, a word used by the opposition tonight. Nobody wants to leave their home, their family and everything they know. And thankfully, none of us in this room will ever have to seek sanctuary in a place we don't know in the future. So let's always remember with humility and kindness, there, but for the grace of God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Corden. Right, we move on now to would all councillors please cast their votes? All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? 3 abstentions. Right, okay, sorry. 7. Right, the motion is carried. We move on to item 6, pay and reward statement. Before we commence our report, can I please ask the Chief Executive and senior officers to leave the council chambers? Leader, did Julian come say a few words first? Okay.
Yes, thank you. The heads of service and above have left the room due to a conflict of interest. The next motion. Thanks ever so much.
Okay, Leader.
Thank you, presiding member. So the annual report presented before us today has 2 items for recommendation to full council. This requires us to review and agree the annual pay and reward policy and the alignment of chief officer leave. Our pay and reward policy for the workforce is an annual report that requires adoption by the council. The policy sets out the internal mechanisms for remunerating council officers and provides an update on any changes since the last adoption in 2022. Any changes that were made during the last 12 months have been supported by the correct democratic and officer processes where necessary and are noted in the covering report. Colleagues, you may recall last year when I reported the council's gender pay gap, it continued to compare favourably with other councils across Wales and the UK. We anticipate this to still be the case when we refresh our pay data later this month. I'm also pleased to report that the council has seen a reduction in the ratio of pay between our lowest and highest paid officers, meaning there's less of a gap between them. Now, this report also outlines how the council has aligned the leave of officers and other terms and conditions as part of the council's commitment to a single status agreement in 2015. In the 2022-23 pay award, all officers other than chief officers were awarded an additional day's annual leave as part of the pay award. To ensure that we're continuing our commitment to have a single status approach wherever it's possible to do so, it is recommended that chief officers' annual leave is also aligned to include the additional days leave that other officers of the council have been awarded. Therefore, presiding member, the report asks council to agree the updated pay and reward policy in order to meet our statutory obligations, and for council to agree the alignment of chief officer annual leave. In conclusion, I ask this council to consider and agree both important items. Thank you, presiding member.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a seconder? Councillor Petroni. Are there any comments on the proposal? No. Right, would all councillors please cast their votes? All those in favour? That's unanimous, I think. Yeah, that's unanimous. There's no one against, is there? No. So the pay and reward policy is duly carried. Can someone please invite the Chief Executive and Senior Officer to return to the council chambers, please? Okay, can we move to item 7 now? The participation strategy ward meetings. Leader, to present the report.
Thank you, presiding member. We have before us the proposed framework for the reintroduction of ward meetings as a valuable means of engaging with our residents. The report today seeks Council's approval for the framework, setting out the frequency, order of business and provision for support for ward meetings to be adopted. In May 2022, the Council made a commitment to support our residents to become more involved in decision making and to encourage more diversity in decision makers through the adoption of a participation strategy. Under this strategy, the Council aims to build on the existing programme of engagement and consultation with the public to further increase participation in democratic processes. Feedback from the consultation on our participation strategy indicated that residents would like the Council to explore alternative methods of consultation, and ward meetings are one of the many ways that the Council is able to support wider public involvement in decision making. In developing the proposed framework, members of the Democratic Services Committee highlighted the key features that they considered to be an essential part of arrangements for ward meetings. These features will help to ensure that our residents have the opportunity to engage in important decisions and to set their own agenda, reflecting the issues that are important to each community. Defining an agreed framework for the ward meetings that will include 2 fully supported ward meetings each year per ward recognises our commitment as a council to engage with residents on key decisions that will impact communities in a timely manner. Utilising one of the regular ward meetings to focus on budget setting and supporting our residents to engage with this process on a face-to-face basis will encourage rich and meaningful feedback that shapes the outcome of the decisions being made. In addition, a second supported ward meeting, approximately 6 months after the budget setting ward meeting, would provide a further opportunity to promote awareness of the Council's functions, including a summary of progress against key objectives and projects. Where members wish to hold a third meeting in a year, administrative support will be provided for booking suitable venues within communities for ward meetings, but there will be no officer support at any third or subsequent meeting. Importantly, both supported ward meetings will provide the opportunity for residents to set their own points for discussion, so the community can help to set an agenda that provides a platform to discuss what matters in their own community. Whilst the proposed framework would support meetings in each ward if required, it would remain within the remit of the ward members to determine whether the ward meetings are held in their own community. Members may prefer to communicate with their residents in a different way, such as ward surgeries, casework emails, or social media, for example. Ward meetings are an option that can be used to enhance communication, but will not replace any of those other methods of engagement with communities that are open to councillors. Our proposed framework supports the long-term development of greater engagement and involvement of residents so that the council continues to involve and empower the community as part of our decision-making and democratic processes. I therefore ask that this council adopts the framework detailed in the report so that ward meetings can be reinstated for residents in 2023-24. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Leader. Is there a second?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Happy to second and support the motion.
Okay, are there any comments on the report? No, right, so will all those in favour please show? It's unanimous again, I think, so that's carried. There's no one against us there, no. Like I keep switching on and off here all the time. The scrutiny annual report, obviously, Councillor Hurain to present the report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I'm pleased to present the 2021-22 annual scrutiny report to the Council. The purpose of this report is to appraise the Council and other interested parties of the role of the scrutiny committees and their work during 21-22 municipal year. Scrutiny is a function of councils in England and Wales and was introduced by the Local Government Act 2000, creating separate cabinet and scrutiny functions in all local authorities. The role of scrutiny was strengthened with the passing of the Local Government Wales Measure 2011. The Act requires the committee to report annually to the Council on the work that it has carried out in the past 12 months and its future work programme. Since the introduction of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act, scrutiny also has a statutory duty to scrutinise the work of public service boards. The underlying principle of scrutiny arrangements is to ensure that the decision-making process is open, accountable and transparent. The scrutiny function in Newport is performed by 4 scrutiny committees comprising of elected members who are not part of the Council's executive. 3 of these committees are concerned with the performance under Place and Corporate, People and Partnerships, Overview and Management Scrutiny, considers policies, strategies and plans that are cross-cutting and impact upon the whole Council. The annual report covers the period from May 2021 to April 2022 and is the final annual report of the 5-year term leading up to local elections in May 2022. During this time, there was a restructure which meant that the configuration of the Council changed. However, this did not have a material impact on services areas scrutinised by each committee. The report highlights the important work carried out by scrutiny over the year, during which the 4 committees met on a regular basis. Performance committees considered regular updates on service plans for their relevant areas and have used this evidence based on scrutinising performance in a wider context. The service plan updates have included financial information, links with corporate goals, well-being goals, and work towards goals set externally to the Council. End-of-year updates also include details of how the Council adapted and responded to the challenges faced by services and committee due to the pandemic and how support was provided to residents and businesses. A number of recommendations were made to Cabinet, commending the quality of the updates and to promote key achievements within Newport so that residents were informed of actions that provided support during and subsequent to the pandemic. During this time, committees received reports on the Cabinet's responses to the recommendations the committees previously made to the draft budget proposals, including investments as part of scrutiny's remit for measuring and assessing the authority's impacts and values. Outside of the cycle of performance review, the performance scrutiny committees also considered reports on topics including in-house residential care in Newport, aimed at increasing the local provision available for looked after children, the economic recovery strategy dealing with progress against the plans supporting Newport businesses and investments, and the well-being support provided to staff in this challenging period. Performance Scrutiny Committee for Partnerships considered the Wellbeing Plan annual report presented by the Public Services Board and submitted their comments to be shared with the PSB. Similarly, the committee also scrutinised the performance against the Wellbeing Plan 2020-21 and submitted recommendations to the Public Services Board for consideration. Partnership scrutiny also assessed the collaborative work between the Council and Education Assessment Services, Shared Resource Service and Barnardo's as part of their agenda. Overview and Scrutiny Management Committee considered and shaped key strategies setting out priorities for the Council over the coming years, including the climate change strategy and Welsh 5-year strategy, as well as a number of annual updates concerning safeguarding, risk management and digital service significant progresses were made against the actions planned for the reporting period during this time, including the revisions to ensure that scrutiny arrangements continue to meet the requirements for the Local Government and Elections Act, Wales 2021, and the Equalities Act 2010. This has ensured that scrutiny continues to operate effectively in the light of recent legislative changes. This will continue to be focused for scrutiny in the next reporting period to recognise changes of arrangements for the regional scrutiny of public service boards. I look forward to chairing the Overview and Scrutiny Committee for the remainder of the municipal year, working alongside committee members in ensuring that we provide an objective and productive challenge to the decisions of the local authority. I would like to take this opportunity to thank my scrutiny colleagues and the cabinet members, officers of the local authority and their partners for their continued support. I ask the Council to note the contents of this report and reflect on the operation and effectiveness of scrutiny during this period. Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hureen. Is there a seconder to the motion?
Presiding member, it is my privilege to second the motion, and can I congratulate all the scrutiny officers as well, and align myself with what's been read today. It has worked. It's a bit different from inside here. Scrutiny is one of those things where you have cross-party interaction, where the work actually really begins, and long may it continue. Thank you.
Councillor Rowley. Are there any comments on the report? Right, all those in favour? Unanimous again. There's no one against, is there? No. No. Right. The scrutiny annual report is duly carried. We now move to open questions of the Leader of the Council. Questions will be asked in the ballot list order sent out earlier today. Before we start, does the Leader have any announcements to make?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I do have a number of announcements to share with colleagues this evening. So last week I was joined by the Deputy Minister for Climate Change, Lee Waters, MS, and the Mayor of our city to officially open the new city centre active travel bridge. The bridge replaces the old subway and provides residents and visitors with a safer, more accessible route across the railway line. It connects our communities and the city centre, something our residents were clear that they wanted in responding to our active travel consultations. It's been a complex project led by Newport City Council in partnership with Welsh Government, Network Rail and Transport for Wales, and delivered on site by contractors and subcontractors that are all Welsh-based companies, delivering a direct benefit to our local economy and our communities. The building of this bridge is yet another step forward in delivering our wider regeneration plans for our city centre and greatly improves the public realm, as I'm sure that everyone will agree, making the area far more attractive for all users. And I would encourage everybody to take a look at the planting beds. They too are sustainable thanks to a drainage system that captures and directs water straight to them. So I'd highly recommend, if you haven't had a look at that already, that you go down and have a look. Now, I'm really pleased to highlight the marathon. We were delighted to welcome thousands of runners and spectators to the city over a week ago for the ABP Newport Wales Marathon and 10K. Now, the weather wasn't the finest on the day, but it did prove to be perfect for competitors with 3 new course records set. Our city was on the small screen again when the race and highlights were televised last Friday. And well done to everybody who took part. all of our local volunteers, and those who work very hard to make the event a success, including our Newport City Council officers and, of course, our Newport City councillors who volunteered to support the event, and of course those councillors who actively participated in the event as well. So well done, everybody. Now, on the subject of events, I would like to highlight that the coronation weekend is fast approaching, and so too are the plans for community events. The highlight for us this year is the big lunch at Beechwood Park, taking place on Sunday the 7th of May between 12 and 4 p.m. With support from Newport City Radio, Beechwood Park Group and Newport Live, there will be live music, roaming entertainers, sporting and craft activities for all the family. Pack up a picnic, cross your fingers for some sunshine and come along. We're also pleased to be able to support street parties again this year. Applications are currently being processed and those successful will be supported with traffic management on the day. More information about all of our coronation events are available on our website. And I would just like to highlight there are a number of alternative events going on across the whole of the city in recognition of the coronation. But there's also some events as well, you know, that recognise the challenges some people face. And I'd also encourage colleagues to support those calls for donations for food banks. On the subject of events, I'd also really like to highlight the next National Armed Forces Day for Wales. I'm really proud that Newport's hosting this event this year on Saturday, the 24th of June, and we've got an action-packed schedule in place. So the day will start at 10 o'clock with military displays along the riverside, and organisations such as the British Legion, the Royal Naval Association, Help for Heroes, Newport Veterans Hub, Gavo and many more will have stalls inside the Theatre and Arts Centre. There'll be a parade in the city centre led by the regimental band. And we've also got a parachute team dropping in somewhere in the city centre, so look out for that. Activities in the city centre will finish at 3, but there's going to be a free ticketed concert in Rodney Parade from 4 till 6 p.m. And I do know, colleagues, that you'll all want to support this prestigious day when the council, our communities and people from further afield will be able to show their gratitude to all those serving in the armed forces and veterans. It will be a fantastic day for the city, and we look forward to service people, veterans, residents and visitors joining us for this occasion. So for more information and the latest announcements, please keep your eye on the website and on social media. Now, tomorrow, colleagues, we'll be hosting another cost of living event to offer support to our residents. Taking place in the Riverfront Theatre and Arts Centre, members of the public can drop in between any time between 10 and 6. Hundreds of local people attended a similar event last November, so we've once again joined forces with organisations including Newport Citizens Advice, Age Cymru Gwent, Melin Homes, Newport Credit Union, Waste Savers and an Iron Bevan University Health Board. The event will be welcoming, inclusive and informal. People can just pop in for a chat, have a look around. There'll be free tea, coffee and there'll be children's activities on offer. So it's really important, if you've got anybody in your community or if anybody contacts you looking for advice and support, that you signpost them to this event, because this really could help them and it could make the difference to their personal situations. Now, in the same vein, we're also working with schools to make a difference to the lives of children from low-income households. And I'm absolutely delighted that my friend and colleague, that the deputy leader, recently launched a strategy to provide bespoke and targeted and universal approaches to tackling all aspects of poverty that impact on children and their families. And the strategy is aimed at removing the barriers that can impact on a child's education. All schools have received a presentation by Children in Wales about taking a whole school approach, and by working with a range of partners, there'll be a wide range of advice and support available for schools, pupils and families. And once again, huge thank you to Councillor Davis for really leading that. And on the subject of initiatives like that, I'd like to just highlight the amazing work of St Julian's Primary School. I had the privilege of attending St Julian's Primary last Friday, and the children introduced me to the Big Box Void. What an amazing initiative. It's a mini supermarket housed in a shipping container on the school site. The container, the fridges, the freezers and other equipment was provided by Welsh Government. And a number of schools across Wales, including 1 or 2 of our Newport schools, have actually participated in this initiative. The project's got 2 aims: to reduce food waste and also to make food affordable for the community. It's stocked in a number of ways. There's donations from staff and families, donations and food and money from organisations in the community, the local shops, and I was very impressed to see the donations there from the hot bread shop and the co-op. It's also supported and stocked by crops that are grown in the polytunnels. So the children participate in the activities there, and when they harvest the crops, the food is made available through the shop. And I have to say at this point, huge thanks to Councillor Davis and to Councillor Spencer for their involvement in that. And I am reliably informed that Councillor Spencer is absolutely great at providing seeds for the crops to grow. So well done, Councillor Spencer. You've deserved that name check for all that work. The shop, and this is the important aspect of this, it also stocks nappies, toothpaste, sanitary projects and other household items. The shop is a pay-as-you-feel shop. So people arrive with their shopping bags, they choose the items they need, and then they pay whatever they feel they should or whatever they can afford. What a tremendous community-focused effort from St Julian's Primary School. What a wonderful initiative, and what a fantastic way of educating our children. I cannot commend this highly enough to you. It's a fantastic scheme, and I am so proud of the efforts that all of our schools are making across the whole of Newport. Now, colleagues, since we last met, the Newport Library, Museum and Art Gallery building in John Frost Square is reopened after a major programme of Welsh Government funded work to create space for additional council teams. Residents can now access a range of services in the heart of the city centre. Making much better use of a council-owned building, the scheme has included new office space where rooms where residents can actually make an appointment to go and speak to somebody about any issues that they have. I don't know if anybody's visited it. If you haven't, you really should go. For anyone that's familiar with Newport, it's completely changed. The refurbishment has completely changed the nature of the building. The foyer is so open and bright and welcoming. It really is transformational. So I'd highly recommend that you would go along and have a look. And work is also underway on some unique artwork within the building. I'm really pleased to say that Urban Circle was successful in obtaining funding for the project, and we look forward to unveiling that artwork very soon. So thank you, Presiding Member.
Thank you, Leader. Very positive report there on what's happening in the city. So it's welcomed by all, I'm sure. Right. Any questions to the Leader? Sorry, Councillor. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. Question to the Leader of the Council. 1 in 7 people in Wales are employed in the tourism industry, which includes thousands of Newportonians. Would the Leader tell this Council if she's in favour or opposed to proposals by the Welsh Labour Government to introduce a tourism tax, and explain the reasons why?
Thank you very much, Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor Evans, for your question. Tourism is really important, isn't it? It's an important aspect of the Welsh economy, and we all recognise that. And I think we can't consider tourism without also considering hospitality as well, because that forms an important aspect of that. Here in Newport, we've got a great deal on offer for visitors who come to us, who choose to come to us. And we've started to accommodate that really by supporting the development of more bed spaces. We know that there's a demand for bed spaces too. So we've seen the recent, we've got the International Convention Centre where there's a number of conferences and events. And I'm sure there's one event coming up there that you will all be going along to this weekend. But we've also got our heritage assets as well that people come to see and come to look at. And we know that our transporter bridge is part of that, but also the tremendous heritage asset that is Cullion. Our Roman history is second to none, isn't it? So we all recognise the importance of the tourism sector to the Welsh economy. In terms of a tourism tax, however, my understanding is that that will be left to the discretion of local authorities to consider. And I think that's a very important point because that enables the 22 Welsh local authorities to actually review that on a case-by-case basis. Now, here in Newport, as I've said, we've got excellent heritage and tourism assets. We've got our cultural history as well. And let's not forget places like the wetlands, the living levels, the Monmouthshire and Brecon Canal. They all attract tourists, all attract visitors. When it comes to the concept of introducing a tourism tax, however, I firmly believe that that would be a matter for full council to debate.
Thank you, through you, presiding member. And you took half my speech away because the question was simply, will you won't be supporting it? But of course, you know, I'm quite surprised that you haven't made a statement about this because we've got, for instance, the Labour leader of the Vale of Glamorgan Council has spoken out publicly against this and said that they're not going to implement it in the Vale. We've got the council leader of Wrexham, of course, close border, has also spoken out against it.
Councillor Evans, there's got to be a question.
No, sorry, presiding member. You need to ensure that we have a proper debate.
It's got to be a supplementary question
This
to
is
what
a
the lead.
supplementary question, but I need to explain the context of that. So I'm not going to give way. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry. It's got to be a supplementary question on what the leader has said. That's in standing orders.
And I'm trying to clarify that because the question I first asked was, does the leader of the council support it? I'm using evidence of other ones who've also asked these questions, leaders of other councils across Wales. This was back in January. So unless I can make these points, if you let me finish the point, these were all back in January.
Councillor Evans, please. Councillor Evans, the leader has made has answered your question. The question that you've got has to be a supplementary question on what the leader has said.
Well, this is what I'm trying to do.
You're not. You're taking a lot of time up here
Well,
for other people to speak as well.
I'm sorry.
Wasting a lot of time here.
Is wrong, and I'm sorry if you want our support. You do not interrupt me in the middle of a question, a short question. I've had half the answer, so I should be allowed to continue.
The question's got to be on what the leader.
The question is quite simple. I didn't get an answer the first time that a decision hadn't been made at the end of it.
And the leader said there's possibly a debate. So I think that.
So my question is going to be, why have other council leaders decided, and why haven't we made a decision now? Because a lot of these businesses in Newport, as we've talked about it, whether it's a transporter bridge, whether it's a wetlands, Celtic Manor, the International Convention Centre, Tredegar House, all these businesses deserve to know where they stand. And the fact that other council leaders have already done this publicly since January, my secondary question is, why haven't we had taken a decision by cabinet first before it comes to full council?
That's the question you should have asked, and that would have been fine, wouldn't it?
Well, I just asked it.
Okay. Councillor Whitehead. So, leader, you want to answer what he's.
Just have the question that I need to answer, please.
Well, Well, I think yeah.
Okay. The first question was, do you support the tourism tax? Yes or no? The second question was, having not responded to the first question, other council leaders across Wales already publicly committed their stance. So why haven't we?
I wish first place, to be honest, but they were.
Thank you, presiding member. Thank you, Councillor Evans, for your question. So I can't speak on behalf of other council leaders across the whole of Wales. Obviously, I can't do that. But all I can do is give a view as the leader of Newport City Council. And my view is the one that I've just articulated, that any such decision needs to really be open to debate. And I wouldn't give a statement on that particular issue until I'd undertaken a full analysis, a robust analysis of all the supporting evidence, including the financial information around that. I would, however, on the subject of businesses, hospitality sector, the tourism sector, I would, however, like to really emphasise the excellent support that's shown by our business support team for all businesses across the city of Newport, the hard work and effort that they put into that, working with major businesses and small businesses and SMEs as well. And I think it's really important to recognise that this council firmly supports business. And there's no stronger evidence of that than our decision in the budget to introduce a discretionary element to business rates, which means along with the rebate that the Welsh Government has put in place for businesses this year, that also with our 25% reduction, that actually means that eligible businesses within our city centre area particularly will not have to pay business rates this year. And that gesture, that discretionary aspect of it, could be the aspect that actually makes the difference to those businesses surviving this year. So there's strong support for businesses here in Newport, but any decisions going forward with regard to the topic that you've highlighted will need to be evidence-based. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Whitehead.
Point of order, Mr. Presiding Officer. I think it's our turn, my group, to ask the question.
I've only got what I've got written down here as Councillor Whitehead.
Yeah, Mr. Presiding Officer, Councillor Whitehead has crashed out, so he said he'll let Councillor Morris answer a question.
Oh, okay. All I'm saying is I've got this down as Councillor Whitehead, but if Councillor Whitehead has agreed, then for Councillor Morris then to speak.
Yeah, because Councillor Whitehead's crashed out, he can't get back in.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Councillor Whitehead's crashed out, so he can't get back in.
Apparently, you are right. But that's not what I got here, mate. Okay.
Well, let's be honest, we can spend a lot longer talking to the police than we can our own leader. We're not trying to catch people out. We're trying to ask genuine questions that our residents ask us to ask. And 15 minutes time when you've got 5 opposition groups now.
You're taking time up now with
explaining how the system is wrong, but there we are.
It's gone through democratic services.
Anyway, question to the leader. Am I correct in now understanding that the only way that you can make an appointment for the tip is via the online? It has to be done online to book a slot at the tip. Am I correct?
You finish your question, have you?
No, I just want to make sure that I've got that correct.
You will have an answer now, won't you? To you, Leader.
So your question is, are you correct in understanding that the only way that you can make an appointment for the tip is online? No, you are incorrect in that understanding, because residents can also make that appointment face to face.
No supplementary question?
No, I'm quite happy to accept that. But when you say face to face, that means they have to actually drive to the tip. Point of clarification, please.
Residents can go in, they can go into the library museum building where we've got the customer contact centre that I've just described to you all. And if you haven't been, I'd strongly recommend that you go in there and have a look at the services that are provided from there. They can also go into our libraries and get support with that as well. And herbs.
Okay, the next question I've got is Councillor Hurahan. Councillor White. Oh, sorry. Now on this list now. You can't get in. Okay, sorry. Councillor Hurahan. I wish some people would tell me.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. My question to the leader is, in January, there were 2 days of public engagement in Newport in the preparatory budgeting process. Does the leader consider there to be any benefit to adopting such an approach for the distribution of funding?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Thank you, Councillor Hurahan, for your question. Many of you, I think, will be familiar with the participatory budgeting work that the Council's led over the last few years. And I think it would be remiss of me in responding to a question on this, not to thank my councillor colleagues for the work that they've done with this in terms of highlighting this to their residents, but also endorsing some of the applications that people have made for that. I thank you all for the contribution that you've made to that. I need to be clear, though, in responding to a question on this, is that this is really a partnership arrangement, and that we've had great support from Aneurin and Bevan University Health Board and our One Newport partnership partners on this. And we've moved to this approach. It initially started through our One Newport partnership because we wanted to find a way of enabling communities to access resources that weren't actually directed by us. So it's not for us to tell people what they should have that money for, but for those communities to have the autonomy to come together and actually bid for money to help them with projects. And we really started to take this forward at the start of the pandemic. Now, you'll recall, colleagues, or some of you will recall, that at the end of the pandemic, we actually introduced a £500,000 COVID community recovery scheme. And we made the conscious decision to distribute this via the participatory budgeting scheme. This year, the programme aims were around building stronger, more resilient communities, improving people's health, well-being and independence, addressing inequalities, tackling the climate change emergency, and making Newport a better place to live. And we've actually completed 4 programmes in terms of participatory budgeting, and the evidence does suggest to us that this really is a very worthwhile way of allocating funds, so much so that our partner organisations have come in and provided additional funds as well. The reason why it's important, in my view, and why it is an effective way of distributing funds is because it enables participation. It's groups, and many of you will have gone along to the Riverfront Theatre, where those groups were actually pitching their ideas to people to come along and vote for them. This is really about citizens deciding where the public money goes, and I'm sure that we'd all agree that that's really important. And it also helps to engage partners and community representatives, because we know that there are groups who want to get involved with this. And I was really pleased to be at the Newport Women's Forum when some of the success that some of the women's group have achieved with this was actually highlighted. And there's some project work now going on in Pill, actually, with some of the successful recipients of this funding. So look out for some of the work there. What's really important with this is not just that it's a really effective way of distributing funding, but it also helps to build social capital and make communities stronger. And it increases trust in funding organisations as well. It builds that trust with us, between us and those community groups. It really does promote citizenship and empower people to really participate in decisions that affect them. It's been really popular. And what I would like to highlight is that there's been well over 1,000 people who've taken part in these sessions. So this is absolutely excellent. This is active engagement within this process. This is not about passive recipients of funding. This is about people, groups, individuals and communities coming together and getting actively involved in this. And I'm really proud of the work that we do here in Newport with this. And I've got to say, Councillor Ryan, hats off to our partnerships team, because they've really led the way with this, and it's an exemplar for the distribution of funding, I would say, across the whole of Wales and the UK. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Leader. The 15 minutes are up, so there's no need for it. There's no time for supplementary questions on that, and I think the Leader has covered most of what you were asking anyway. Right, can we move on now to item 10, which is questions to Cabinet Member. There's only one written question. Councillor Deb Davis, it's a question to you. Councillor Oakley, your question to the Cabinet Member, please.
Thank you. With the increase in new housing developments across Newport placing a strain on the existing schools, what step, Cabinet Member, are you taking to relieve the pupil placement crisis currently faced by many families? How are you ensuring that new housing projects will not exacerbate the problem? And how will your administration address the emotional distress that parents are suffering with the high number of application rejections?
Thank you, Councillor Routley. I'm really grateful for the opportunity this evening to clarify the facts on an issue that's been bandied around this evening with not a great deal of evidence. Offers of a places in September 23 reception year group were issued on the 17th of April. And whilst a high proportion of applicants were successful in gaining a place at one of their preference schools, a minority of primary schools for which the council is the admission authority, that's 2 out of 37 schools, were unable to meet the demand for places from pupils living in their catchment area. This is disappointing. However, parents are always encouraged to include multiple preferences when making applications to increase their probability of receiving an offer that they are satisfied with. The school admissions team will continue to work with the families. They always work with the families without a current offer to secure an alternative school placement for their children, and they always support them throughout this process. Notwithstanding this, there is actually an overall sufficiency of places across our city within the primary sector, and therefore the council continues to fulfil its legal duties in relation to statutory schooling. However, it is inevitable that this does not always correlate with parental preference. The development of a new school on the Whiteheads development and the subsequent relocation of Ysgol Gymraeg Nantgwenthli will increase the overall availability of primary school places in the west of the city. And there are 2 new developer-led primary schools that will open in the east of the city over the next few years. But what I can say proudly, that is all of our primary schools perform to a high standard, and our home to school transport policy supports primary age children whose nearest available school is 2 miles or more from their home address. In terms of the secondary sector, the published admission numbers of 2 secondary schools will formally increase from September 2023 to assist in meeting transitional demand. And again, there's overall sufficiency of places in the sector for the September 23 Year 7 cohort. The projected future demand for secondary provision continues to be reported through and monitored by the Planning of Schools Places Group, and data will be used to inform future capital projects. Thank you.
Supplementary. It's to clarify the question, sorry, not the supplementary. It's to clarify the question what the Cabinet Member gave. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Am I clarifying my question or her answer?
The Cabinet Member gave you an answer. Do you
Thank
want?
you.
Right, and
Thank you.
it's up to you now to clarify any question, any answer that she gave you, okay?
Thank you, because you did say question. Thank you. According to recent data, that's FOIs, okay, a significant number of schools in Newport are facing enrollment capacity issues. Specifically, over 2/3, that's 70% of the city's primary schools are currently over capacity. 31 out of 44 primary schools being completely full. Additionally, this academic year, there were 805 families rejected with their applications. They were refused both across primary and secondary school networks, including 2 SEN schools. And we know, I mean, this isn't a question, cabinet member, to attack you on. What we're trying to do is to say, listen, let us help you, let us work with you. These statistics are deeply concerning, and I know they are concerning to you as a cabinet member.
I don't want to stop it, but it's a supplementary question to allow any point that she's raised out of it. Please.
Yes. The schools are struggling to cope with the increase, as you said. As cabinet member for education, it may be worth considering that you review the schools against the background of the freedom of information that we all have and that has been obtained for and on behalf of us. But you haven't addressed, and you never answered in your question, what are you doing to address the emotional toll placed upon the child's family applications that have been refused? It is crucial to have a clear plan.
Can I have a point of order, please? What is the question? He's been talking now for more than 3 minutes.
It's crucial that you have a clear plan to for these capacity issues and ensure that every child in Newport has high local access to.
Point of order, Chair.
Can I have asked you to put the question. It's not a question you put there. It just went on and on and on. What I'm saying is, it's got to be a question to the lead, to the cabinet member for education.
Do you want me to have another go?
Oh, I don't. Thank you. Sit down. That's the best.
But you keep engaging with me.
Can I clarify what the actual question was, please? Because there's a lot of rhetoric, but where was the question? Was it that final statement at the end of your rhetoric?
I make another suggestion. Can I ask Councillor Routley not to get up again, please, but to put it in writing what you were trying to say to the cabinet member of education? That would be quite easy.
Grateful. Thank you.
Right.
We've already had it presided.
Pardon?
The cabinet members already had the questions, just failed to answer it.
I thought the cabinet member did answer your answers. You come up with another question, and that's not what it's about. Right, okay, that's another one over, is it really? Right, okay. That concludes the business set out on the agenda. The date for the next meeting is on Tuesday, the 16th, which is our council AGM. Can I just say, and this is the last meeting before our AGM, can I thank all councillors for all the work that you've done during the last year, especially the new members for all the work they have done, certainly in their wards. I hope you've enjoyed your year. It can be a thankless task, there's no doubt about that, but it can be very rewarding as well. There's no question about that either. So thank you all, members, and look forward to seeing you on the 16th of the AGM. Have a good evening.